Welcome back, everybody. I hope those of you that had lunch downstairs, you had a nice experience. And those of you that newly arrived are ready for an energizing afternoon. Yeah, we're so impressed with how many of you turned up on this extremely hot day. So I hope you are all having a nice time. I wanted to say a special thank you for the Town and Country Planning Association, who have generously contributed to putting this event up, but also they have brought an incredible new audience to Curious Cities Assembly, and we're hoping that this partnership will continue, and they are going to host the afternoon, so I'm soon going to hand you over to Gemma, and before I do so, I just wanted to remind everybody that right after the programming today, we're going to have a nice reception, which originally was going to take part on the roof terrace, but I'm told it's scorching up there, so we may have to move it to the neighborhood room, but we'll be back with news on that, seeing how the temperatures evolve. But I think that's all I had to say, and with that, I'm going to hand over to Gemma from TCPA. Thank you.
Thanks, Barbara. We just negotiate the steps and not fall off. That would be the best start. Yeah, thanks everybody. Thank you for hanging on in with us through this weather. And yeah, to Barbara and Clean Cities, we're really pleased that we were able to collaborate and help shape part of this event. So for those of you that don't know us, the Town and Country Planning Association, we're an independent charity who is working to put social justice at the heart of planning and placemaking. We have a really long history of championing homes, places and communities in which everyone can thrive. For those of you that have got a handle on your planning history, we come out of the Garden City movement, and so have this strong sense of actually what makes a good place for people, not just for the built environment's sake, not just to make something beautiful, but something that's great to live in. And days like today really remind us actually that the quality of the built environment, our homes, our neighbourhoods, the city, has a huge impact on our daily lives in terms of our ability to have comfort and safety and health, and in this context, shade and shelter and greenery. Walkability and places to pause. So today we work with local authorities and communities and other partners, and we do sort of policy and research, guidance, training and practical support, but really trying to focus in on that practical. How do we just move some of these things on from the things that we think that we want, that we know that we want, that evidence tells us work? How do we get those into practice? How do we implement that stuff? And much of that work is about how planning can respond to some of the biggest challenges that we're facing. So that is around health, it is around climate change, it is around community participation in creating places where that people have everyday quality of life. I'm not sure I have a clicker. Thank you. So with that, children and young people have long been a part of our story as well. So there are earlier influences in our history when someone called Colin Ward, if you've come across him, was part of the association, and his sort of work on the child in the city is really important. And as an association, we've rediscovered that really in the last couple of years as a bit of our history and something that we really want to refocus on. And most recently, have been working to think about how you put the rights, needs and voices of children and young people into local planning policy in particular, as well as pushing national government with many other partners who are, many of them in this room, to do better on that front. And perhaps one of the things that our work keeps bringing back to us is the gap between what places say they value and what people actually experience. And that's why we wanted to really ground this afternoon session in place and thinking about our time together this afternoon, thinking about that idea of the doorstep. It does work. because you've heard it many times already, actually, through the themes that came out this morning. In a way, Dr. Patel stole all my thunder when he said that good design is good for everybody. Well, that could have just been what I'm about to say in a nutshell, but essentially that's great. If we want to know who a city really works for, one of the best places to look is the doorstep. And that's not in the abstract, not because a strategy document tells us to do that, because everyday spaces just beyond the home, where movement, safety, access, care and public life are just negotiated in practice. That's what makes that space so important and so impactful. And when we say doorstep, we're talking about quite a rich idea of what we mean by that concept. We're not just talking about that literal threshold to the home. We're talking about those sort of spaces immediately beyond it. So that might be the pavement, it might be the curb, a crossing, the verge, the route to school, those sort of things that stretch out into the neighbourhood, the walk to the shops, places where you do stuff if it's available to you. You might wait, you might wheel or cycle, you might need to walk, you might need to chat or to pause, and certainly to play. It's where the sort of the wider systems that we work within become real. It's where planning policy becomes something you can feel, where transport strategy becomes either freedom or friction, and where questions of safety, access, care and independence are worked out in practice. And it's often where a city shows most clearly who and what it is designed around. It's never neutral. At the doorstep, a whole set of priorities meet each other in physical form, and everybody wants space from that same edge. And that's where priorities can stop sounding compatible. So when space is limited, every decision is saying something. What matters? Who's protected? What's seen as essential? What can be negotiated? Who gets ease? Who gets delayed? Who's expected to adapt and who has to absorb the friction? A place can say it supports children's independence, but still make the street outside feel hostile, fragmented, and just not for them. A place can say it values health, but still make everyday walking awkward and stressful, with air that is harmful to breathe. It can say it wants public life, but still organise the edge of the street primarily around vehicle storage and movement. And it can say it is inclusive, while leaving some people to navigate barriers that others barely notice, which we heard really eloquently about this morning. So the doorstep is a sharp test of what our priorities have been and what they are, and it's also a place of possibility. And that's precisely why it matters in terms of planning, design, managing spaces, animating spaces around homes, and how we support communities to shape them. At the TCPA, we often work on planning policy and strategic questions, but these are never only strategic. They are lived in, they are everyday experiences, and they matter for people's lives, whether it's helping them to live a good life or whether it's quietly working against them. So looking at the doorstep helps us have an honest conversation, keeps us close to experience, close to children's lives and close to the practical realities of place. But the doorstep is not only a physical setting, it's a really personal one as well. For most of us, the doorstep is bound up with memory and identity and feeling. At the risk of announcing my age, I grew up in the 1980s in a cul-de-sac, and there was very little passing traffic, and I really remember the curbs that we jumped off, the drain covers that we would play marbles on, and the road construction, which you don't see so much anymore, was like concrete slabs with tar along the joins. In the summer, on days we didn't have 40 degrees, but in the summer it would start to melt and we would stick our fingers in it. And they're really core memories for me in terms of that doorstep space. And as a parent, I've also seen how a shared parking courtyard, which was never designed to be this, but it became a social and playful extension of our home. The neighbourhood kids would come together, they would play, there's usually a water fight in the summer, and And it was great because lots of the houses, a glance out of the window and you'd know that they were still there, but you didn't feel like you needed to watch them. And usually the noise level, quite frankly, was enough to know that they were still there. But it was great, and it really worked for us as a family, and was an unforeseen benefit when we moved into that house. So these sorts of spaces on the doorstep, perhaps uniquely, are where public policy meets the intimate realities of home, family, and everyday life. And they are really vital for that. The emotional and cultural meanings people attach to the places around homes are not easily captured in transport policy or design standards. The doorstep carries histories, associations, and values that are deeply felt, even when they're not always visible or acknowledged. And all of this, I think, is part of what makes it such a powerful way into this afternoon's theme. So over the course of the next few hours, we'll explore what the doorstep reveals about justice and health, design, delivery, power and participation. We're going to ask who shapes it, what gets in the way, and what it would take to create places that work better for children, families and communities. And as we've already heard, therefore, climate and lots of other groups as well. And then we'll widen the lens at the end of the day, sort of just looking up a bit back to the city and all of those lessons that we can interchange between those two sorts of geographies.